The first thing I noticed was the light, not the chandeliers themselves, but the way their crystal shards fractured it, scattering sharp, cold glimmers across the marble hall of Langford Academy of Law like tiny knives. A beautiful place, yes, but beauty often hides rot. Tonight, its perfume-thick air, sweet pastries, floral colognes, polished ambition felt like the scented veil over an old, unhealed wound. Servers wove between the tables with almost military precision, balancing silver trays of hors d'oeuvres so delicate they looked crafted for gods, not guests. None of them could have known that the quiet woman near the staircase, dressed in a plain navy suit, carried enough legal authority to one day decide the fates of their children, or that she harboured the kind of long, suppressed anger that, when stirred, could redraw destinies. First night at the honours reception? A passing server, Catherine, asked warmly, offering champagne. The Kingsleys can be demanding. The Kingsleys. Of course. My son Nicholas was dating their daughter, Shirley. Her father, Jacob, senior partner at one of the most ruthless firms in the city. Cold charm, cold smile, colder ethics. He questioned my son with the same subtle contempt he reserved for those he deemed beneath him. I adjusted my pearl earrings, the same ones I'd worn while handing down a corruption ruling that had gutted Jacob's firm's biggest account only weeks ago. He hadn't recognised me then. They rarely do when they're scrambling for mercy. From the kitchen came raised voices, hurried steps. Something sharp, like the snap of tension right before retribution, cut the air. Curiosity tugged me closer. There stood Shirley, wrapped in a couture gown worth more than most public defenders earn in a year. And in front of her, a young server, trembling, eyes bright with humiliation. No, absolutely not, Shirley hissed. Christine requested water chilled to exactly 42 degrees. This is not 42. Do you people not understand basic instructions? Ah, privilege, polished to a blade. Is there a problem? I asked, voice soft, steady. Shirley turned. Her eyes narrowed as she assessed me. First confusion, then irritation. Who are you? And why aren't you in uniform? Angela, I said evenly, Nicholas's mother. Recognition flickered, followed by a thin, disdain-laced smile. Oh, he said you might arrive early. The staff entrance can be confusing. They were perfectly helpful, I replied pleasantly, watching her mask slip, though I was under the impression I'd be greeting the justices with my son. Before she could craft another insult, her father swept in, dramatic as a stage cue. Tailored charcoal suit, immaculate hair, that trademark smile that never reached his eyes. Katie, darling, Christine is here. Then he saw me, and something in his expression twitched. And you must be Nicholas's mother. From where was it again? The Eastborough Superior Court, I answered, knowing exactly the picture that conjured. Gritty, unrefined, far from his polished world. Yes, well, he said briskly, adjusting his tie. We've arranged for the help to remain in the kitchen during the main reception. Too many unfamiliar faces can unsettle the justices. I nearly laughed. The same man who had stood trembling before my bench last month, begging for leniency in a bribery case. He hadn't recognised me then, either. How convenient guilt can be. Mother? Nicholas's voice cut through the rising tension. He strode across the kitchen, every inch the poised future attorney, sharp-eyed, protective. Shirley, he said quietly, a warning layered beneath the calm. We talked about this. It's fine, I murmured, touching his arm, a gentle gesture masking the pent-up rage stirring beneath my ribs. I'm comfortable here. Jacob smirked. Given your background, we assumed you'd prefer something less formal. Not everyone is ready to mingle with Supreme Court justices. Nicholas stepped forward, jaw tight, but one look from me stopped him. It was the same look I'd given defendants right before delivering judgment. Calm, definitive, inevitable. Perhaps, I said lightly, we should return to the reception. I believe I hear Christine discussing the Martinez ruling from last month. And right on cue, a commanding voice echoed through the swinging doors. Where is Angela? I hope to congratulate her on that brilliant opinion. It fundamentally shifts the landscape of corporate accountability. Jacob's confident smile stiffened, as if someone had yanked an invisible thread holding it in place. "Judge Martinez!" A young clerk burst into the kitchen, breathless, cheeks flushed. "Christine is asking for you. He wants your take on the new fraud compliance guidelines." I turned toward the stunned room, brushing a non-existent wrinkle from my navy suit. "Federal Judge Angela," I corrected gently, my voice calm but edged with the kind of steel that leaves invisible cuts. "Though I appreciate your concern about my ability to speak with the Supreme Court. I manage it every few weeks." Jacob blanched, his complexion fading to the exact shade of the marble floor. You're... he stammered. "Yes," I replied with a soft scalpel-like smile. "From the Eastborough Superior Court, 20 years ago. Youngest appointee to the Second Circuit after that. Your firm appears before me often, though you usually send your juniors when the stakes are high." A subtle reminder. Retribution without raising my voice. Shirley's perfect composure fractured like thin ice. "But you let us believe you were staff." "I did." I let the silence stretch just long enough for the sting to settle. "Consider it a lesson in judgment, and in how assumptions tend to expose unresolved grievances." I stepped past them. "Shall we go? Christine doesn't like to wait." As I crossed the threshold, Catherine caught my eye and gave me a discreet thumbs up. I winked back, already adding her daughter's name to the mental list of candidates for our court's internship program. Personal justice comes in many shapes. Nicholas joined me, the sleeve of his academic robe brushing mine as we moved toward the glittering hall. "You knew this would happen," he murmured. "Sometimes," I said, straightening his collar, "people need memorable wounds to change their behavior. Besides, watching Jacob realize he's been patronizing the judge who'll preside over his firm's biggest case next week." I allowed myself a quiet, satisfied inhale. That's punishment without theatrics. "And Shirley?" Nicholas asked, his voice tight. "That depends," I said, "on whether this crack in her arrogance widens. Some people need more than one lesson before their boiling hatred cools into humility." Christine spread his arms as soon as he spotted me. "Angela, the Martinez ruling, absolutely extraordinary. Tell me, how in the world did you predict that loophole in the corporate matrix?" I felt several heads turn, especially the Kingsleys. Their silence was a delicious, slow-simmered broth. "Actually, Samuel," I said, "that insight came from my early years cleaning courthouse floors at night while putting myself through law school. When justice is something you mop around, you learn how it seeps into every corner of society." A hush rippled through the guests, respect, surprise, the faint sting of collective guilt. Behind me, Shirley whispered, voice trembling, "Daddy, I think I made a terrible mistake." "Yes," I thought, taking a champagne flute from a passing tray. "A mistake that will stay with you like an open wound. But wounds can teach, if she allowed them to." The next hour unfolded like a quiet symphony of reckoning. Jacob stood drenched in sweat, shrinking as his colleagues connected the dots. Senior partners approached me with brittle smiles, their voices low, apologetic. "Judge Martinez," one said carefully, We weren't aware you were Nicholas's mother. Jacob was modest." "Modest?" I raised a brow. "How unlike him, especially considering his theatrics during the Langford brief." The partner's face tightened. Everyone in the room knew Jacob had abandoned that case after losing his first argument before me. Abandonment, another subtle form of betrayal. Across the hall, Shirley hovered alone, her once magnetic confidence collapsing in on itself. Girls who had worshipped her 10 minutes earlier now swarmed around Nicholas, whispering kindly, aligning themselves with the son of a federal judge as effortlessly as birds shifting formation. Shirley lunged forward and caught his arm. "Nicholas, please, let me explain." "Explain what, Kate?" he asked quietly. His tone was sharp and steady, my tone in court when preparing a verdict. "Explain how you told your friends my mother couldn't afford a proper dress? Or how you advised I distance myself from my embarrassing background to belong in your world. I didn't know. That's worse, Nicholas said, his voice a clean, controlled cut. And the room went still. You didn't know she was a judge, Nicholas said, his voice low but razor-sharp. So you thought it was acceptable to treat her like someone who didn't matter. What does that say about how you treat the people who don't have titles to protect them? The words landed like a quiet execution. Catherine moved past us again, balancing a tray of glasses. Her small, proud smile met mine for a single heartbeat, a tiny spark of vindication glowing in the dimness of the moment. Shirley saw it, and her face drained of colour, recognising the woman she had dismissed so many times, with a flick of her hand and an icy command. Nicholas, please, Shirley whispered, we can fix this. I can fix this. Fix what? The interruption came in a silky, controlled voice. Shirley stepped forward, poised and crisp, her expression carved into something between irritation and calculation. She looked like a strategist walking onto the battlefield after hearing her side had lost ground. Shirley, sweetheart, she murmured, we need to discuss the fallout. Half the judges here know about what happened in the kitchen. Her tone said everything. The shame wasn't in the cruelty, it was in being caught. I decided to spare them an audience, or perhaps guide them into a lesson far more instructive. Mrs. Kingsley, I said calmly, let's continue this somewhere private. The donor lounge is empty. The Kingsleys followed me stiffly, as if approaching a verdict they already feared. Inside the richly furnished lounge, velvet chairs, portraits of benefactors, a fireplace pretending to offer warmth, Shirley struck first. Judge Martinez, she began, smoothing her hair with trembling fingers. Surely we can find some understanding. My husband's firm has several important matters before your court. I tilted my head slightly. Are you attempting to negotiate with a federal judge, Mrs. Kingsley? I didn't raise my voice. The softness made the warning far sharper. That would be profoundly inappropriate, wouldn't it? Shirley faltered. I didn't intend. No, I replied. People like you rarely intend to be cruel. You don't intend to belittle those who serve you, or to reduce human worth to bank accounts and lineage. And yet, here we are. Shirley sank into a leather chair, her posture collapsing. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know it doesn't erase anything, but I truly am. I sat across from her. It matters, I said quietly, but only if it marks the beginning of something real, not a strategy to soothe tonight's embarrassment. Shirley stood rigid, hands locked in front of her like a woman bracing against a storm. What is it you want from us? She asked. What I want? I let out a soft, incredulous breath. Mrs. Kingsley, I already have everything I need. A career I built from nothing. A son whose integrity is worth more than every trust fund in this room combined. I don't need anything from you. I leaned forward slightly. The real question is, what do you want for your daughter? Shirley lifted her eyes, streaked mascara turning them hollow and human. What do you mean? She asked. I mean, do you want her to stay trapped in this illusion, to believe influence and designer labels are substitutes for character? Or do you want her to understand the strength that grows from humility, effort, and facing one's own fractures? I don't understand, Shirley began, but Shirley cut her off. You want me to earn my place, she said slowly. The way you did, the way Nicholas does. The shift in her voice was subtle but unmistakably real. My first job was scrubbing courthouse floors after midnight, I said softly. And I learned something vital there. The person collecting trash might someday be the one signing your judgment. The server you dismiss might raise a future attorney. And dignity, true dignity, isn't inherited. It's built. Shirley nodded, tears clinging to her lashes. And if I want to be someone Nicholas can respect, she whispered, I need to become someone deserving of respect, not someone demanding it. A quiet honesty settled over her, dissolving the glossy mask she'd worn all evening. You realise this path won't be simple, I warned. Your friends won't get it. Your parents' circle will sneer. Growth rarely comes without resistance. I know, her voice cracked. But what can I do? Where do I start? The Legal Aid Society needs volunteers, I said, and the courthouse daycare is always searching for people to read to the children of defendants who can't afford childcare during hearings. Shirley gasped. Absolutely not. Shirley can't possibly. I'll do it, Shirley interrupted. Both. Her mother's eyes widened. And I want to apologise to Catherine and the rest of the staff. Every one of them. Shirley? Shirley protested. No, Mother. Shirley rose, standing straighter than I had ever seen her. Judge Martinez is right. I've behaved terribly. She swallowed hard. We have. And if I want a future with Nicholas, Shirley whispered, I have to become someone who earns respect, someone who embodies it, not someone who expects the world to bow. I watched her carefully. Her once polished facade, crafted by privilege, reinforced by generations of insulation, finally showed a true fracture. Not a collapse, but the first honest break in the porcelain armour she had worn her entire life. You realise the path you're choosing won't be gentle, I said. Your friends will mock you. Your parents' circle will whisper about rebellion. Let them, Shirley replied, surprising me with her steadiness. I'd rather be remembered for doing something worthwhile than for humiliating the people who pour my drinks. Shirley slumped into a velvet chair, looking as though someone had pulled the ground from under her. Your father will never agree to this, she murmured. Then, perhaps, I suggested with mildness sharpened into irony, Mr. Kingsley should visit his firm's pro bono division. I've heard it's starved for attention. When we returned to the reception, I watched Shirley approach Catherine with hesitant resolve. Her apology wasn't graceful, nor particularly eloquent, but it was sincere, and sincerity is the first step toward any lasting transformation. Nicholas slid beside me, lowering his voice. You're offering her a second chance. I'm offering her a doorway, I corrected. Whether she walks through it is her responsibility. And her father's upcoming cases? My rulings will be as impartial as always, I replied, allowing a faint smile. Though Mr. Kingsley may discover that civic responsibility is a vastly underestimated part of legal practice. As the evening dimmed, I saw Shirley assisting the staff, collecting glasses, wiping tables, laughing nervously as she learned how to fold napkins properly. Her designer gown was wrinkled and her hair undone, but the smile she wore was the first truly human one I'd ever seen from her. Some judgments, I thought, are made far from any courtroom. 3 months later, my clerk informed me of an unexpected visitor. Shirley is here to see you. When she walked into my chambers, I barely recognised her. Gone were the expensive clothes and calculated elegance. Instead, she wore a simple blazer, and faint roughness marked her fingers, evidence of hours spent doing work that demanded more than posture. Judge Martinez, she said, then paused. Angela, I brought something for you. She placed a folder on my desk. Inside were thank you notes, crayon drawings, misspelled words, messy hearts, from the children in the courthouse daycare centre. There were photos too, Shirley reading aloud, kneeling beside kids as they coloured, helping with homework while their parents attended hearings. Catherine's daughter got into law school, she said quietly. I helped her study for the LSAT between my legal aid shifts. She's brilliant. She just needed someone to stand in her corner. Her eyes were different now, clearer, steadier, stripped of varnish. And your father? I asked. A dry laugh escaped her. He's discovering that pro bono cases can change a man's perspective. Last week, he helped a homeless veteran recover his pension. I've never seen him that alive about a legal win, and it didn't earn him a dime. And your mother? She's adjusting, Shirley said diplomatically. She joined the daycare's fundraising committee, though she insists on teaching the kids proper social graces during story hour. I closed the folder gently. And what about you, Shirley? What are you finding in all this? Her expression grew thoughtful, even vulnerable. I found something I didn't know I was missing. A sense of purpose. Real connection. Those kids don't care about my last name. They don't care what I wore last season or how much my handbag costs. They care that I sit on the floor with them, that I listen, that I show up. she exhaled slowly. And Nicholas? He was right to be hurt that night. But he's proud of me now, not because I'm trying to impress you, but because I'm finally becoming someone he can trust. I studied her. The girl who once barked orders at servers had dissolved. Standing before me was a young woman learning to step out of the gilded cage she was raised in. My old friends think I've lost my mind, she admitted. They say I'm wasting my time with those people. And does that bother you? I asked for the first time. Her voice softened. No, because I finally know what matters. Then, almost shyly, she corrected herself. I finally know who matters. The mothers working 3 jobs to keep their kids in school. The courthouse clerks who memorize every judge's preferences but never receive gratitude. The public defenders fighting mountains with teaspoons. I smiled, remembering the feel of a mop handle beneath my hands, long before I ever held a gavel. From a janitor in the dark to a judge in the light, and maybe, now, passing a bit of that light forward. And what comes next? I asked. For the new Shirley? She lifted her chin, the movement small, but filled with a quiet conviction she hadn't possessed months ago. I applied for a position with the Public Defender's Office, she said. After graduation. A wry smile tugged at her lips. My father nearly needed medical intervention. He already had a corner office waiting for me at the firm. But I don't want his legacy. I want mine. I want to build something on my own terms. It won't be glamorous, I cautioned. The pay is modest, the hours brutal. The work can break your heart. I know, she replied. No flinching, no hesitation. But that night in the kitchen taught me something. The most meaningful destinations often lie at the end of the hardest roads. When she left my chambers, I sat for a moment, thinking about privilege and humility, about kitchens and courtrooms, about how small moments, ones we nearly overlook, can alter the trajectory of an entire life. Nicholas appeared in the doorway, leaning casually against the frame. Mum, ready for lunch? I raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. Shirley told you she was visiting? He grinned. She wanted you to know the lesson stayed with her, that she really has changed. No, I corrected gently, gathering my robe. She's changing, and that's better. Change done for others fades, change done for oneself. That's the kind that lasts. We walked together down the courthouse corridor. Catherine's daughter sat in a corner of the library, her head bent over a stack of law books. She looked up just long enough to give me a quick, confident nod before returning to her studies. I smiled. I remembered another young woman, decades ago, pushing a mop bucket down these same halls, memorizing legal terms whispered through courtroom doors, daring to believe she could one day stand on the bench instead of cleaning under it. Sometimes, I thought, the most powerful verdicts aren't written in legal opinions. They're written in the unseen transformations of lives, touched at the edges of privilege and pain. As Nicholas and I stepped outside into the crisp afternoon air, I reflected on how change often begins in the smallest, most unremarkable corners of the world. Not in the glare of chandeliers or the echo of court gavels, but in a cramped kitchen at a law school reception, where an entitled young woman learned that true worth has nothing to do with status or wealth. It's measured instead by how you treat the people who move quietly around you, the people you rarely notice until the moment you finally learn to.